Good evening, everybody.
Evening.
Good
evening.
How's everybody? Any news?
Baruch Hashem. How are you?
Yeah, Baruch Hashem, good. I feel, I'll not get too many people upset, but I feel there's clapping now, forgot.
Yeah.
I feel there's a value in having a shiur on Fridays, because I feel like to have 2 days a week of those shiur, even if it's just for 3/4 of an hour, I feel it should always be uploaded, and afterwards people can watch it. The only question is to make it 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. Anybody have any preferences? Chaim, what about you? 10 o'clock, okay?
Works either way works for me.
Shua, 10 o'clock, okay?
Yeah, 10:30, yeah.
Tony, what about you?
I'm working tomorrow, so I'll watch it afterwards. So
Tony, just put up a close sign on your entrance to your thing and just.
Ben, what about
Tony,
you?
it's not a favor to watch the shit during work.
Yeah, when I'm photographing somebody's property, he won't really appreciate it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'll listen to it.
What about you, Vital? 10 o'clock, alright for you?
Normally Friday out working, so 10 or 11 hours.
What are we discussing? Shit, tomorrow.
I feel that to have as a regular habit to do shiur twice, I think, once the lockdown's finished, we can do it on Shabbos. But now we're doing not Friday. I think it's kedai, even if just for 3/4 of an hour, 40 minutes.
Yeah, that was my original thought as well. Having a 2-day gap is a bit.
Wish, what do you think? 10 or 11? Equally bad, equally good.
Earlier than
Better. I think we should leave it for 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Tony, can you put out a message on the group?
Yeah.
There'll be a shiur for 40-45 minutes, say 40 minutes tomorrow.
And it'll be uploaded, whoever can't make it.
That's how we uploaded it shortly after 10 o'clock. Tomorrow morning. Very good.
Is Moshe around though? Is Moshe available to upload it soon after?
Well, should we be able to upload it shortly after?
talking about tonight.
No, tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Oh yeah, sure,
Less people
yeah.
can make it tomorrow.
Right, okay.
So what time is it tomorrow?
10 o'clock, 10. For 40-45 minutes. It won't be a long shiur.
Fine. Say that. Just go.
Right. We're up to Ein Zayin Amud Aleph. 3 lines from the bottom. A nice light gemors on the whole. The Mishnah said, Cholov Kedei Gemir. We're going to get this principle until we can say it in our sleep. In order to be chayav for any malacha on Shabbos, it has to be a significant malacha. If somebody does something which has no value, it's not a malacha for which one is chayav. So for carrying, you have to carry something which is worth something. So how much milk do you have to carry to be chayav? Enough for a gulp, for one swallow. So now the Gemara discusses 3 words which we find, and the only question is the grammar of those words. And the Gemara says like this: Cholov kedei gemir. Eboilehu kedei gemir with an aleph or kedei gemir with an ayin. We actually don't pronounce that different an aleph to an ayin. There are those, the Timanim Marshal, the ayin is not read as a, but ag, with a gimel at the neck. That or some with a resh. So that or yef v'yogea, for example, by zocher, some people like to hear it. They have v'yogeyar or something. So what happens? Those who like to hear Parshas Zocher, all the different versions, you can go and listen to it. The ayin is different, but we do have a slight difference in the emphasis on the letter. The question is now, Mishnah, was it spelled with aleph or ayin? Eliezer asks Rivka, give me a bit of water, and he uses an aleph, so we see it's meant to be spelled with an aleph. The Ramban already asks the question that there are places in Shas where sip is spelled with an ayin. The Ramban says that it can be either. The Gemara is just discussing what's the more correct word. The Gemara asks another shaila, ayin zayin on base. Gavinim or gavinin. Do you read a gavin, a pip, with an aleph or with an ayin? Top of ayin zayin on base. that when a person has a field of hekdesh and he wants to deduct the amount of years that he's already had it from the amount that he has to redeem it, so you say v'nigra, you deduct. The word v'nigra is with an ayin. A pip deducts from the fruit. Because if you look at a big fruit and inside it there's a pip, take a lychee, for example. The pip takes up a good percentage of the actual fruit. So the pip minuses from the quantity of the fruit. So the gavin, the pip, is ayin, is a weaker. It means it is missing. For nigra merkechot, that it is missing, and therefore it should be spelled with an ayin because the gavin means a pip, and it's missing from the fruit. It's missing from the quantity of the fruit. The Aruch says, interestingly enough, that fruit that do not have pips are not as good quality. The Steichemet brings a shaila. In his days, they invented the first time grapes without pips. Nowadays, it's very, very commonplace. In olden days, it was a new thing. And he asks the shaila, can you make wine from grapes without pips? And he brings this gemara, where he says that you see that a pip is a fruit without a pip is less of a fruit. The might say paskas that you can make. Eboilu, similar shaila, by coals, that it says that they have to be glowing. So regarding Korban Pesach, so do they have to be glowing? Does it have to spell it with an aleph or with an ayin? The pasuk is talking about the king of Ashur, and it says, "Avos in the cedar trees, that even the cedar trees will not dim the beauty of king of Ashur." It's a mashal that the king of Ashur will be so powerful, nobody will overshadow him. But we see the word is with an ayin. If a person is dying, a person actually was nifter already, I should say. If a person was already nifter, the minute he gets to close his eyes, one is not allowed to close a nifter's eyes on Shabbos because a dead person's muktzah. So the Gemara asks the shaila, do we spell it with an aleph or an ayin? Somebody who's a tzaddik closes his eyes from looking at bad things, and it's spelled with an ayin. So we see that we should always spell it with an ayin. So we see we have 4 questions regarding aleph and ayin, and the Ma'aseh Gemara passes each one from a makoi. In Halachas Gittin, a couple of times about to be on the basis of a get, one of the hardest shilas is spelling things correctly. And most of the Tshuvas form, I saw somebody quoting, the Mesivta brings it, about somebody whose woman was called Basia, and they spelled the name with a samach, not with a sof. Basia, base, samach, yud, hey, instead of base, sof, yud, hey. And he brings from this Gemara an interesting right. We mentioned in the beginning that the Ramban points out that some of these words are often read differently in different places in the Gemara. For example, Kemiya, we will see later, Kemiya is with an ayin, not with an aleph. And the Ramban answers that either one is good enough. And he says that from this Gemara, you see the very fact that they did not know. How could they not know such a thing, whether it was an aleph or an ayin? The answer is because the difference was so minute that when you pronounced it, nobody could tell the difference. Because if when you pronounced it, you could tell a difference, then they would have known it. But since in the olden days they learned everything off by heart, so they would only hear the words, but never actually see the words inside. So therefore, that's why they couldn't tell the difference between aleph and an ayin. It says similarly, a name and a get, where there's no difference to the pronunciation, is okay even if it's spelled incorrectly, which is a very big kula in Halachas Gittin. It's very important halacha. That if he brings a right from this Gemara, it's interesting to bring a nafkamina and a ma'isa from this Gemara, that a word which can be pronounced either way is okay. Going back to measurements of what's considered carrying. Cow's milk, the amount of 1 swallow. The milk of a woman. A white of an egg. There was a certain kind of medication called kilo, which was a kind of eye drop. They would put it in the eye, which they would put some medication in the eyes. This medication always had to be diluted. It was often diluted in water, the milk from a woman, or the white of an egg. So to carry any of these things, it had to be enough that you could dilute that medication. Enough that could be diluted and still be used. Boya Rashi, Kedei Shifa or Kedei Achiza, the Shifa. Take. Whenever you put medication in your eye, how do you do it? You have medication in a plate, you dip your finger inside the medication, and then you rub it into your eye. So Rav Ashi says over here, we said that this medication, how much of it do you need to carry in order to be chayav? Enough to be able to put in 2 eyes. Asks Rav Ashi, do you need enough to be able to put, because whenever you put something, medication, you put something in your eye, a lot of it gets lost on your fingers. Think about it. You've got a small amount of medication, you dip your fingers in and you rub it in your eyes. So he says the amount of medication you need, does it have to be enough that it goes on the eyes and the fingers, or just what goes on the eyes and that's enough? Rabbi Moshe Horowitz asks the Shaila that if it's only enough to go in the eyes without the fingers, what in the world are you going to use it for? Because by the time you finish dipping your fingers in and rubbing it into your eyes, you will not have enough. Because if it's only enough to fit in the eyes, it won't work. So he says an interesting spot. He says that what happens is often people would use a feather, often people would use fingers. When you put it with a feather in your eye, you don't lose anything because a feather doesn't absorb as much as a person's fingers absorb. The Gemara Shaila is, though, that most times people would use their fingers. And that's the Shaila of the Gemara here. Do you need to have enough to be able to put on your fingers and in your eyes, or enough that could go on the feather in the eyes, and then that is less? The Gemara says, Teiku, it's not clear. Devash, honey. What do you do with the honey? In order to put on a wound. On the mouth of the wound. Does it mean on the mouth of the entire wound? On the top corner of the wound, a wound has 3 levels. Whenever you have a wound, you have got the very, very top tip of the wound, like you've got a boil, the very top of the boil. You've got around the top of the boil, and then you've got the area around the boil. So you need to put honey. How much honey do you need to take in order to make a person better? How much is that? So the Gemara says to put on the tip. It says of Rashi, what does it mean on the tip? Does it mean on the very, very top? Or does it mean everywhere which is coming out of the boil, everywhere which is coming out of the skin? The Gemara says, Teiku. It's a question of how much honey you need to take out. The Gemara says, Teiku. Everything that Baruch created in this world, he never created one thing for waste. He created a slug or a snail, the causes for a wound. He created flies, if a person gets stung by a wasp or a hornet, you should take a fly, says Rashi, crush it and rub it in and makes the person better. Yatush lenochosh. If a person is bitten by a snake, you should take a mosquito and rub it into his skin, and that makes the snake heal better. The nochish lechafofis. Chafofis kind of boils. If a person has boils, he should rub a dead snake over his boils. The samomis leakrov, and a spider for scorpions. If a person gets bitten by a scorpion, he should rub spider all over himself. Heichi avidle. How should he do it? So they shouldn't explain what exactly we talk about. Some say it's referring to the snake, and some say it's referring to the snail. The Gemara says, "Ma'isi chad uchma." You take one black one, a chad chivva, and one white one. The sholkilu, you cook them. The shaifle, and you rub them. So if a person gets bitten, if a person's got a wound and he wants to take slugs, you should take one white one, one black one, cook them, rub them. Alternatively, if a person's got a chafofis, which is kind of shchin, kind of boils, then you take the snake, one white, one black, cook it, and then rub it into the boils. There are 5 kinds of fear, where the weaker thing creates fear for the much bigger thing. Emas mafkia alavi. Mafkia is a kind of bird that makes a very, very loud, shrilling sound. And what happens is the lion, which is much more powerful, gets very, very frustrated and scared of this bird because if it stays by its ears, it gets too scared to be able to do anything. A mosquito, which is millions of times smaller than an elephant, that since it can bother it all the time, so a mosquito causes an elephant to get fearful. the fear of a scorpion is on the fear of a spider is on a scorpion. Scorpions are scared of spiders. There's a tiny little bird that gets into the wings of the eagle and stops the eagle from taking off. There's a very, very big fish, the livyoson, which is like a kind of whale, and a tiny fish comes in and keeps getting into the ear of the whale, and the whale gets frustrated and scared. The shoid can refer to somebody broken. That sometimes Hashem makes that somebody who's broken is more powerful than the one who's strong. And it's a very, very important message. Shaul says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has it within his power that it makes no difference how much brute strength a person has. HaKadosh Baruch Hu can make it that the mighty lion is scared of a tiny little bird. If you've ever been in a bedroom and you've got a mosquito buzzing in your ear all night, the mosquito is millions of times smaller than you. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if he wants, can make his power seen over you with a tiny little mosquito. Rab Zera Ashkach Rab Yehuda. Rab Zera met Rab Yehuda Davikoya Pischet Bechamor. He was standing by the entrance of his father-in-law. That he was in a very joyful mood. If you would ask him any question about anything in the world, he would be able to reply him. Can you imagine? He had the opportunity to ask him a question about anything going on in the world, he would be able to tell him. Now, he's going to ask him loads of questions that all seem very, very mundane. There's a Sefer Ben Yehuda that goes through each one, very Kabbalistic, about how each one had a very deep meaning. It is much too complicated to go through. We have to be aware that everything in Gemara has tremendous Kedusha. But for us, we'll stick just to Pashup Pshat. So he asked him many mundane questions. Marshal points out he was standing outside waiting for his father-in-law, so therefore it wasn't upon a bittul Torah because anyway he wasn't able, he was still waiting for something. Okay. So what is like this? What did he ask him? Omale, my time is masking bereisha, v'hoda emi. Why do goats walk in front of sheep? Omale ki v'yosa shalola. That goats are black, sheep are white. Night comes before day. So therefore, black goats lead the way to white sheep. My Tami asked him, Hani mechasyon v'hani megalion. Why is it that sheep have tails to cover themselves with, and goats do not have tails? Rams, I should say, rams. Yeah, goats. Sorry, good. So he says, Hani, it is, what is it? Ism is, what's the right word for it? I think it's goats. He translates it as goats. Okay. So he said, why is it that goats, they have short tails and sheep have long tails? So he's like, it's Hani sheep to michsaminayu, that we use their wool to cover ourselves, mechasyon. So they also get covered with a tail. But goats that we don't use goat hair to wear, so therefore migalion, therefore they are revealed. Meaning because we don't use them as clothes, they don't deserve to get a tail to cover themselves. Why do camels have very short tails? Answer: he eats thorns. Since he eats thorns, therefore, if he had a long tail, the camel would get trapped in the thorns and he'd get very uncomfortable. So Hashem made sure that he has a very short tail. My time, why is it Teva, an ox? He's got a long tail. He lives amongst the meadows. It has to swat away the flies. So if a cow has to have a long tail to get rid of all the flies, it flaps its tail around to get rid of it. My tama, why is it counted the kamsu? Why are the horns of an ant soft? That means that some say it's a locust. They have, ants and locusts have little things popping out of their heads, look like horns, tiny little hair-like protrusions. Why are they soft? They live amongst branches. The akashia, if they would be hard, naido misava. The eyes of the ant or the locust are placed on these antennae, they're called, the antenna of the ants. And if they would be hard, when they would bang against a branch, they would crack. And then these ants or these locusts would become blinded. So therefore, what we do is, Hashem made it that these antennae is soft and they bend against the branches. The person wants to blind an ant, you should pull off the antenna, the horns, because the eyes of the ant and the locust are in the horns. Why is it that the eyelid of a chicken goes upwards, not downwards? When you close your eyes, 99% of people and animals, when they close their eyes, the eyelid goes down. With a chicken, when it closes his eyes, or actually, if you think about it, you'll notice it. The chickens, when they close their eyes, the eyelid goes up, not down. Why is that? So he said, the Daria Dapi, they live on shelves. The Al Kitchum is Ava. And if the smoke would come into the eyes, it would get blinded. So Hashem made an extra level of cover underneath the eyes of the chicken to protect them from the smoke that comes out. You see over here, the flows, everything got a cheshbon. The camel has a small tail, not get trapped in the thorns. The cow has a big tail to get rid of the flies. This one has soft horns in order not to get blinded. This one has got better eyelids in order not to get blinded from the smoke. Everything got a cheshbon. Dasho. Why is a door called a dasho? The answer, derech shom, because that's the way to go. Dasho is Rosh Hashanah, derech shom. Darga. Why is a ladder called a darga? Derech gag, because it goes up to the roof. Maskulisa was a kind of dip. It was a bowl which they used to use for dips. Why was it called maskulisa? Mosai tichledo. When is this ever going to finish? Sometimes you take a jar of something, you covered like a hummus or something. You think, is this ever going to finish? So also over here, maskulisa was something which was a dip. So you think to yourself, is it ever going to finish? Because you eat it only bit by bit. Rashi got another pshat, Rashi says, is that you're worried when it will be finished, what else will you have? Because people like their dips. Beisa, why is a house called a beisa? Bo ve'esav bo, come and dwell there. Biksa, why is a small house, a tiny house called a biksa, hut? Be'aksa, a house which is narrow. Kufsa, why is a log of wood called kufsa? Kuf v'tiv. Bend it and sit on it. Because a big piece of wood, you bend it over, you turn it over, and you can sit on it. Livni, why are bricks called livni? Livnei boni, because they last for grandchildren. Bricks, if you build a house out of bricks, it lasts much longer. So livni, bricks, is livnei boni, for grandsons, sons of sons, because they last for a long time. Hutza, that's a fence. Chatzitza, the word hutza comes from chatzitza, it's a barrier. Chatzbo, a jug which you draw water from the river. Shechitzev minamai minanor, because you draw water with the river from it. Now Shaul points out that when people would draw water, they wouldn't use a cup, because a cup won't give them much water. They wouldn't use a barrel because it would be too heavy to carry home. So they would take a jug. So a jug was called a chatzpo, something which you draw water with. Kuzah, kazeh. Kuzah was a very, very small cup. And sometimes people would schnorr, they would beg people, give me a tiny drink, they take a lechaim cup, give me extra lechaim. So kuzah was a very, very small cup. And he said, just give me a tiny bit like this, kuzah, like this. So kuzah, being a very small cup, was called kuzah to describe the fact that it's very small. Just give me a little bit like this. Shutisa. Why is hadassim called shutisa? Shtusa. Because in the olden days, people would dance in front of the kala with the hadas, and they would do things which make themselves look foolish. So hadas is called a shutisa. Meshichla. Meshichla is a kind of bath, a big bowl. Moshi kula, because you can wash your entire body with it. So it's called meshichla. Meshichla was a very fancy bath which was made for important people. Mashe kalosa, because kalas, brides, would wash themselves and all other important people. Asita. Asita is a bowl. There's a bowl and a pestle. A bowl which you put the ingredients in, and a pestle was a hollowed out piece of wood. So first one asks, why is a pestle called a pestle? Because chaselto. Inside it was hollowed out, so it was missing. Buchna. Why is the bowl called a buchna? Boivakeno. Because come on and hit it, and therefore it's called buchna. Because inside the bowl you hit the spices to grind them. Levusha. Why are clothes called levusha? Loibusha, because they don't cause embarrassment. Glima. Glima was a kind of cloak which a person would wrap around themselves over like a big shawl. Why would it called a kli? Again, because a goylem is something which is a undefined piece of wood, a piece of wood which hasn't been chiseled out. When a person wears a cloak around them, you can't see the individual limbs. So a gulma refers to a goylem because it makes a person look like undefined, created person, just like the
Shapeless form.
What?
Shapeless form.
Shapeless form. Very good. A form. Gulma is a form. Gulsa. Why is it called gulsa? That's it's like a kind of coat where whenever you want to sit down, you have to lift it up to sit. Galive is reveal, and I can sit because you can only sit when it's revealed. Purya. Why is a bed called a purya? Because people become fruitful on it. It's a place for families to increase. Boy zinka, a pit which was empty was called a boy zinka. Boy ze noki, this pit was completely empty. So zinka is ze noki, is clean, is empty. Sudra was a kind of special kind of hat which a Talmid Chacham would wear. Soida Hashem Niveov, like a turban, is a Soida Hashem Niveov. Hashem's secret is those who fear him. A padna, a palace which have a big doors, a pischa dein, on this entrance, this is where you should go. Vadi Yosef used to wear this like kind of impressive hat, which is where it comes from a sudra that Talmid Chacham has to wear, a unique kind of hat. Tanu Rabban. This is the last bit of that. Gadata, three kinds of animals. As the older they get, they become stronger. Dog, a fish, a snake, and a chazer, a pig. These three animals, as they get bigger, older, they get stronger. When his mother was nifta, he gave a hesped. And he said in the hesped as follows: when I was a child, said Yitzchak Zilberstein, I used to ask my mother for a bedtime story. So now what do you read your children when they go to sleep? What would you read them? So he said, this is the story that my mother used to tell me. So tonight, when you put your children to bed, if you've already gone to bed, then you're very lucky if they've already gone to bed. If they haven't, or tomorrow night when you put them to bed, you can tell them this bedtime story which Yitzchak Zilberstein's mother used to tell him on a regular basis. She said to him like this, that the Gemara says that there are three animals that the older they get, the stronger they get. What are they? A fish, a snake, and a chazer. Why? The answer is not really such a bedtime story. It's more like an interesting idea, perhaps. These three animals, they are apiderech hateva, not very well fed. If you look at a fish inside water, we can't even imagine how a person could survive in water for 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes. And fish, they live in water for years on end without suffocating. A snake, what does a snake eat? Everything tastes of dust. All he ever eats is dust. A chazer, what does a chazer get fed? Rubbish. All the things you throw in the bin, you give to chazerim. So these three animals are not very well looked after. They're not very well fed. So logic would dictate that the older they get, the weaker they get. They should be the weakest of all animals. Hashem arranges specifically that these three animals, the older they get, the more powerful they get, to teach you that a person in life does not need to rely on Piderech HaTeva, but rather HaKadosh Baruch Hu shows that those who you think that they have nothing to have success from, they will be the ones to be the most successful eventually. And that is why these three animals, as they get older, they get stronger. Good night, sleep tight, pleasant dreams. That's what she used to say to him. I don't know, I'm not sure if she said that to him, but what would you say about that? A nice bedtime story? Certainly beats that story about the tailor with the elves and making shoes every night. So this is another story you can tell them, a much more exciting story. And he said in his hesped about his mother that this is the stories that we grew up on. And when the person goes to sleep with such thoughts, of course, the person is hoped to get to become a greater person than somebody who grows up reading nonsense and all the other things. Okay, that's the end of that Gadata. And now we're going back to more shiurim of measurements, more measurements of what is considered enough to carry. Says the Gemara like this. Shemen kedei losachei v'kotam. Oil, what do you do with oil? Oil in olden days was used like a soap, enough to anoint one small limb. Shemen kedei losach eva cotton shel cotton ben yomer. Enough to anoint a small limb of a little baby. A baby 1 day old, one limb, let's say a finger. The finger of a baby 1 day old. How much oil do you need to anoint the finger? Tiny, tiny, tiny amount. Meisvei, that means it explains like this. The Mishnah says a small limb. But the Mishnah does not say the small limb of who? The small limb of a grown adult or a small limb of a baby. Comes along with Bianai and he's being machmir that even if you only take out enough oil to anoint a small limb of a small baby, that's enough already to be considered carrying on Shabbos. Not a small limb of a giant, but a small limb of a baby. From our Mishnah, it doesn't say that. The Mishnah just says a small limb. It doesn't say whose small limb. Rabbi Yanai adds the small limb of a baby. Meisvei says the Bais more Shemen K'delosach Eva Cotton. But Cotton Ben Yomo, it says either a small limb or a child who's 1 day old, meaning either enough oil to anoint an entire baby or the limb of a grown adult. My love, Eva Cotton the Godol, Eva Godol shall Cotton Ben Yomo. Is not the Bais coming to tell us that either a small limb of a big of a big person or the entire body of a little baby? Says no, he reads the Brisa differently. The Brisa means as follows: the Brisa does not mean to say either this or that. The Brisa means both. A small limb of a small person. You could read the Brisa, which is a more simple way of reading it: a small limb or a small person. So no, it means a small limb of a small person, not of a small person, but of a small person. Shemen kedei losach eva cotton the cotton ben yomer div Rav Shimon Elazar. Shimon Elazar says oil enough to anoint a little limb of a child and a child 1 day old. Nos nemek kedei losach eva cotton. My lab, what they argue about? My lab what they argue about? Surely about this. The Shimon Elazar says eva cotton shel cotton. He is machmir a small limb of a child. And also some eva cotton the godol eva godol the cotton and eva cotton shel cotton ben yomer. That means the argument is this particular question. The first mandama says a small limb of a small person. And the second mandama says no, a small limb of a big person or the entire body of a small person. Either or. Look, says one. The Kul Alma, everybody agrees, Eva Cotton, the Cotton Ben Yomer. Everybody agrees when we talk about a small limb, we're referring to a small limb of a small baby. Sorry, I made a mistake. Everybody does not agree with Rabbi Yanai. Everybody says that Rabbi Yanai is wrong. That when Rabbi Yanai said that a small limb of a small baby, everybody agrees that's not true. It says more Tafan Chesem at the top of the page, related to Rabbi Yanai. And we do it hold of Rabbi Yanai. Says a small limb of an adult. And the entire body of a baby, that's the same. And also Sova, Eva Cotton the Godel and Eva Godel the Cotton Ben Yomoy Loy. But not, that means he holds only a small limb of an adult, but not a big limb of a baby. So the Gemara is like this, the Machlokes is as follows. The first mandama holds that a small limb of an adult and a big limb of a baby is exactly the same amount of oil, and that's what's forbidden to carry on Shabbos. And the second mandama, Shimon says no. He says that only the small limb of an adult, the big limb of a child not. Says my Abalo, Toshma, the Tana Mishum Lazaima, Shemen K'Telosuch Eva Cotton Shekotton Ben Yoimoy. Like Rabbi Yanai, we pass like Rabbi Yanai, that enough oil to anoint a small limb of a small child, that is enough. And therefore, not like like Rabbi Yanai, not like what we just said a moment ago that Shimon Elazar and Shimon don't agree with Rabbi Yanai. No. That they argue about Rabbi Yanai. Right. So that means like this, when Mishnah says a small limb, it's referring to enough oil to anoint the smallest limb, which is a finger, Rashi says, of a smallest baby. A tiny amount of oil, that's already enough, because that's already a significant amount, because you can use it. If you ever want to bathe the baby, you've got enough oil to bathe him with for one limb. The Mishnah says water enough to dilute kilo. Kilo, we said, is an eye medication. Omar Abai says the following principles. Mechti sits. That means there are certain items that they have a general use for and a non-general use for, a rare use for. So if you've got an item which generally is used for one thing, and on a rare occasion it's used for something else, then what? They go after what's more common to be made on. That means let's say generally we'll take water. Generally water is, or milk. Generally milk is used for drinking, right? On the rare occasion, people use milk to dilute medication. So now, diluting medication is less than the amount that person needs to drink. So the question is, do we say when a person takes a small amount of milk, well, it's enough to dilute medication? Since it's enough to dilute medication, so therefore it's considered a proper amount and it's chayav. Or do you say, look, generally speaking, milk is taken out for drinking purposes, and this small amount is not enough for a person to feel that he's had a drink? Says Abai, the rule of the general rule is that we go after what's common, even if it comes out of kula. And therefore, since over here, what's more common is to use milk for drinking purposes. Therefore, we will use milk as we will say that you only chayav by milk if you take enough to drink, and therefore, if you take enough milk just to dilute a medication, you're not chayav. That means when you've got a common use and a rare use, we go after the common use, even if it comes out a kula, meaning even if it comes out that you only chayav if you take out more. Shchicha v'shchicha. But let's say both uses are common. That means sometimes it's used for A and sometimes it's used for B. And A is a smaller measure than B. Then we go after the more chomer one. So if you've got a liquid, which sometimes is used for medication and sometimes it's used for a drink. And when it's used for medication, it is used a smaller amount, then we go after the smaller amount because that's just as common as the other use. So therefore, most people, when they carry wine, why do they carry wine? To drink it. But for us, on the rare occasion, they will also use it for medication, but not on a regular basis. So therefore, they said you only chayav if you take enough wine, that it's enough to have a proper drink, not for medication. So they went also to shchicha lekula, they were makeup. Cholov, milk, achilose shchicha. Most people drink it. But for us, no shchicha. The medication, the purposes of it is not so common. So Chazal went after the achilose, they went after the eating of it lekula. Dvash, achilose shchicha. Honey, people regularly eat it before shchicha, and people regularly use it for medication. In the olden days, honey was used regularly as it was used for eating, it was used for medication. So they went after medication, and therefore, enough honey to heal is enough to be chayav for. Elamayim, says the Gemara, but water, everybody agrees that you drink more water than use it for medication. Before so, but medication is not so common. Why would they go after the refuah lechumah? In the end of the day, regularly use it for drinking, not for medication. So why do we say that enough water for medication you're chayav? You shouldn't be chayav because it's not enough to actually be a drink. It's only enough for medication. Medication is much less. We're discussing in the Galil, and in the Galil they used to use water as often for medication as they used to use it for drinking. The reason was because most medications required some liquid. Most medications, you have to dilute the medication in liquid. In the Galil, says Rashi, they were very, very poor. Since they were poor, they would never use milk, wine, and anything else for medication because it was a waste. So the only thing they used for medication to dilute the medication was water. So therefore, water was also commonly used as a medication, and therefore that's why we were machmir. They heal, but they also cause a shade. They heal and don't cause a shade. We're talking about eye medication. Eye medication, says Shmuel, you can dilute it in any liquid that you want. You can dilute it in wine, you can dilute it in milk, you can dilute it in water. But when you dilute it in everything except for water, it will heal the wound in the eye, but it will cause a closing of vision. Why? Because let's say you dilute the medication in milk or in wine. The milk and wine will leave a residue in the eye, and eventually the person won't be able to see. But water does not leave a residue in the eye. So when you're diluting eye medication, says Shmuel, if you dilute it in milk and wine, you'll get better, but it will leave a residue over the eye, and then the eye won't be able to see. If you dilute it in water, it will heal it, and you'll be able to see. Says Rav, according to Shmuel, what do you use water for regularly? To dilute medication, because you're not going to use anything else. Nobody wants to blind themselves. Therefore, water was used regularly as medication, and therefore that's why enough water to dilute medication of the eye is enough to be chayav.
It's only for the eyes, no? If there's any other medication, then it won't be. So could be the eye will still be a minority.
It seems that they used to often put eye medication in the eyes, and therefore it was considered a common thing. Dam, blood, and all liquids is revis. Dam, enough to heal one eye. Why? So here we need to ask, because there's quite a lot of difficult translations over here. So therefore, sorry, where is it? I missed out. The Balkis. Where is it? Where do we have it? Sorry. The Balkis. Where mistake. Balkis is a spot in the eye. If you have a spot in the eye, then the person used to use blood to get rid of it. And therefore, the amount of blood to get rid of this spot was enough to be considered important, and for that, you have. Which kind of blood works for this kind of illness? The blood of a wild chicken, a chicken that lives in the forest. Blood, in order to put one eye, a different kind of blood, that's what they used to do for a cataract. Which kind of blood works for that? Blood of a mole, the simonich, or actually, some say it's a mole. Rashi seems to say it's a bat. The simonich, that means the chicken that lives in the wild, that blood works for a spot on the eye, which is outside the eye. So the chicken that lives outside the house heals the blood of the chicken that lives outside the house, heals the spot outside the eye. The bats and the moles that live inside caves, they can heal cataracts where the blemish is in the eye. So the way to remember which blood works for which is the blood of the animal that lives outside, for a spot outside, the blood that lives inside for the spot inside. But somebody who puts it aside and he keeps it, even though it's anuta, now it's chayav. Somebody who takes it out but is not interested in it, he doesn't store it. Is not chayav unless he uses a quarter. It's unless a quarter of a lug, which is about 150 or 86 milliliters. If you take out dirty water, even though they said that water, if it's enough to dilute eye medication, or the blood enough to heal the cataract and all these other measurements, that's only if it's clean. But once it's dirty, they agree with Rav Shimon that it has to be a revis. There's somebody who stores it, is chayav, even if he uses a minute amount. Says, somebody who stores it is not going to be chayav for storing it. The only way it's going to be chayav is if he actually takes it out. So every person who stores it is also somebody who takes it out. So why does the Brisa say that only somebody who stores it, only somebody who takes it out, not somebody who stores it? The one who stores it is also only chayav if he takes it out. He has a master He has a boss, and the boss says to him, clear for me a place for the meal. And he cleared it for him. If everybody is machshavit chayv, he's chayv. If it's something which is not choshev everybody, he asks the rabbi mechayv the loy mechayv is not chayv. I just explained over here. There's a machlokes, a fundamental machlokes Rashi Tosfos. I try to explain it clearly. Not common. We had before the end of the last book machlokes and Kamashum also regarding if I find something precious and it is less than the minimum amount which Chachamim thought was precious, then if I carry it, I am chayav. So let's, for argument's sake, say I have this little amount of water in my cup. For me, it's very precious. Let's say it's a cup of water which was poured to me by Chaim Kanievsky, let's say. So it's very precious for me. For you, it's not so precious because you don't know about it, or it's water that was sentimental value. So if I carry it, I'm chayav. If you carry it, you're potter. That's what we had at the end of the last bit. Comes along with Shimon Olozan, he says that if I find it precious and it belongs to me, then you carrying it, you also chayav. Because since the owner considers it precious, so therefore now the item has become of value, and therefore if you carry it, you also chayav. If you carry your cup of water, which is not precious to you, you're potter. But if you carry my cup of water, and my cup of water is precious to me, even if it's less than the minimal amount, let's say it's less than the years, but because it belongs to me, and I consider it precious, that gives the item a certain value, and therefore if you carry it, you're chayav. Over here we have a story of a master. The master told his student, go out and clear for me on Shabbos. And what he did was, he cleared something. If he cleared something which is precious to everybody, of course it's chayav. If he cleared something which is not precious to everybody, but the master considers it precious, then he's chayav. Says Rashi, why you chayav? At the end of the day, who cleared it out? The student. And who is it precious to? The master. So why is he chayav? Answers Rashi, because we're going in B'shittas of Shimon ben Elazar that says that when something is precious to A, then if B takes out A's item, then it becomes chayav, because at the end of the day, for A, it was precious. Says Tosfos, I don't agree with you at all. That was never in dispute, that when I ask you to clear something for me, and that thing is precious, then of course you can't, then of course you'll be chayav, because since you're doing it for my sake, and therefore you're doing it for me, and for me it is precious, of course you're chayav, even not according to Shimon Elazar. And we have three kinds of people. A person who's a matzniya, meaning somebody who stores something, he considers that particular item important. Everybody agrees it's chayav. A stranger who carries it is a machlokes Tanakama and Shimon Elazar. Tanakama says a stranger carries this item. For him, it's not precious, therefore it's not chayav. Shimon Elazar says, well, whose item is he carrying? This person, and this person considers it precious, is chayav. We have the in-between stage, a talmid, a student, who takes it on behalf of his master. So according to Rashi, is chayav only according to Shimon Elazar. According to Tanakama, is potter, because at the end of the day, he's carrying something which doesn't belong to the master, which doesn't belong to him. Says Tosfos, no, I don't agree with you. This is the third Tosfos of this page. And he says, no, that well, when you carry it on behalf of somebody else's intention, then of course you're chayav. So let's say, for example, I have a coin which belongs, which is very precious to me. I got it from my great-grandparents. And it's a very small coin. It's not really worth very much. So if I carry it, I'm chayav. If you carry it, it's machlokes Tanakama Shimon Elazar. If I ask you to carry it for me, it's a machlokes Rashi Tosfos. According to Rashi, only chayav according to Shimon Elazar. According to Tosfos, you chayav according to everybody. And just say an interesting deal, which the Meforshim explain, that normally when we talk about a Talmud and a Rav, what are we talking about? A Rav of Rosh Hashiva with a Talmud. Now, if you look in the fourth line of Rashi, Omar Abaya, is the fourth of the very wide lines of Rashi. If you look inside Rashi, Rashi says, Omar Abaya, Hocha b'Talmud kun Shule denagri. Shule denagri is somebody who's learning to be a wood, what's the wood person? A carpenter. A student of a carpenter, what happens is you work for a few years, and then you don't get paid. You just learn the skill, and then afterwards you become. Why did Rashi suddenly change? Whenever we talk about Talmud, Rashi translates a Talmud of Rebbe, and suddenly we're talking about a carpenter. So the David Mishon says a nice pshat, because if here we're talking about somebody asking him to do an Issa on Shabbos, who's going to tell him to do an Issa on Shabbos? Is Rebbe? Of course not. We're talking about somebody who's not a proper Rebbe. He's just somebody who's learning how to become a carpenter. So therefore it's possible they should be getting it wrong. Let's just do counting more. Omar Ma. Let's end with the second wide line. Moedim Chachamim Rab Shimon B'Moitzi Shovchin Sheshamim Sheshuon B'Revi'is the shears of this. So the Gemara says Shovchin L'May Chozu. What can you do with dirty water? Omar Yomi L'Gaba B'Nesatit. You can make out of it cement, right? If you want to make a, what's the word for it? Clay. You don't need to have clean water for clay. Even dirty water, you'll stir and make clay. That by a tit, you have to have enough to make a tiny, tiny amount of a entrance to an oven. And the way Rashi explains, it's going to come up again later, so it's good to see. What they used to do is just have this big oven with a fire inside it. In order for fire to burn well, what do you need a very lot of?
Fuel.
Fuel, and also air. You need to fan it, a lot of air. So they used to have these big bellows, which were attached to the oven, which they would squeeze and make a lot of air come inside it. Now, those bellows would have to fit snug onto the entrance of the oven, because if not, what would happen is the air would escape. If you want to pump up a tire, it has to fit on snug. So what they used to do is around the bellows, they would put clay, a minute amount of clay. Asks the Gemara that you see that minute amount of clay is enough to make a chayav. So why do you need an entire vis? If it's already mixed, then what happens is you use a tiny bit of clay just to close off and seal off your bellows, which is a small amount. But when it's not mixed yet, then a person will not make clay just for a small amount. If you're already going to the effort of making clay, you'll make a very big shear of clay. If a person doesn't make the effort of creating a new set of clay just to close off a tiny bellows, he'll do much more. Here, let me just show you some pictures. Yeah, because we're going to have more of these pictures. This comes up quite a bit. So, yeah, I'm not showing it so well. No, I thought it would show a good picture for such a thing. No. Maybe later we'll have it. I don't know. The Gemara does discuss it later about no, not here. Usually they do have pictures. That means around the bellows you put a bit of clay, but only if you already had ready-made clay. A person won't start off making clay for such a thing. Let's just do at least the Mishnah. Person carries a rope on Shabbos. How long does the rope have to be considered important to be chayav on Shabbos? The last is oizen nekupa to make a handle for a basket. Enough rope to make a handle for a basket, that is chayav. Gemi, a reed. The last is tloi lenapov ekvor, to make a hook for a sieve. If you remember, napov ekvor, both are sieves. One's a fine sieve and one's a thick sieve. So a piece of reed to make a hook for a sieve. In order to take the size of a shoe, they used to take a reed, measure the child's foot, and on the reed mark off, cut the reed to the size of the child's foot, take the reed to a cobbler, and say to him, will you make a shoe this size? So reed that size, which is a smaller amount that you need for a hook. Niyal, paper. How much paper do you need to be chayav? To write on it a receipt from the tax collector. In the olden days, whenever you used to go like on the toll road of the M6, whenever you used to go on certain bridges, you'd have to pay tax. After you paid the tax, you'd get a piece of paper which said that you paid it, and then you would show it to the tax collector, and then you'd let you go on the bridge. So therefore, that piece of paper, if it's big enough to write on it a receipt from the tax collector, so it's significant, and therefore a person's chayav. Rashi in the Gemara later tells us that how big would that be? Enough to write two big letters. If a person carries a tax collector's receipt, chayav, then the person's chayav because that is something which is of significance. Chayav on the Mishnah, top of Ayin Chesamud base, niyar mochok, paper which is being rubbed out. Once paper is being rubbed out, you cannot use it anymore for tax collector's receipt because you can't write in it well. They used to use paper to wrap up a bottle of perfume. So enough paper to wrap up a bottle of perfume, that is important. Or leather. In order to make a kemir, an amulet, they used to use leather to wrap up amulets. Next line has to be start, the more later clear, not like that. Klaf, parchment. The smallest parsha of tefillin is Shema Yisrael. In the Shalvoish, they are divided into 4 different parchments. In the Shalyad, it's all one parchment. So in the Shalvoish, one of the parchments has on it Shema Yisrael all the way to the end of V'ahavto, to the end of V'ahavto, to V'shorecho. So that is a very small piece of parchment. That is enough to be chad. Dioi, ink. If a person carries enough ink, which seems to be very, very small amount, to be able to write 2 letters, then that's enough to be chayv because you can use the ink to draw 2 letters. Chol, this is eye. This is not for healing. This is for eye beauty. In order to adorn one eye. The Gemara will ask, what's the point of a woman putting on makeup on just one eye? But for one eye, enough makeup for one eye. Devek glue, to put on top of a wooden board. The Gemara will ask, why do you put glue on a board? Zephyrus agofis, tar and sulfur, kedelasis nekev, to make a small hole. This is very interesting. They used to put, Rashi says, if you look in Rashi, kedelasis nekev cotton, kelish nisabui kesef chai. What is kesef chai? Does anybody know live silver? Anybody heard of what is live silver? It's mercury. Mercury actually changes form when you leave it in a room by itself. I remember we had a Jewish scientist, Mr. Markvik, I don't know if you remember, Bamberger's father-in-law, Bernard Markvik. It's called Kesef Chai. Now, mercury is very volatile, very dangerous. What you do is you block it off, and then you make a small hole in it in order to come out a tiny bit at a time, and then that small hole you block off. So tar, enough to block off the small hole. Shava, wax, because they lit up a neck of cotton to block off a small hole in a barrel. Chalsis, earthenware, like a piece of clay. Kedelasis pikul shotzei, in order to make the mouth of a crucible. It's like an oven which you burn things down for people who melt gold. If you're doing kedelasis pitput, in order to make a tripod. I told you many times I get pleasure when Rashi uses a French word which is like English. If you look in this Rashi, pitput, regular mukum ishva koshim yoshin kenos v'kach. What's Rashi say? What's the next word? Tripod. Many times people get very upset and they say, oh, it's called English. How can you put oh, it's called English? You say to them, if you'd know French, then you'd have noticed that Rashi puts many French words into it. So obviously, if you ever go to France and you ask them for a tripod, they'll mean that you want a tripod. Look at Rashi, tripod, it's the same word. Okay. Subin, this kind of kind of wheat bran. To put where there's no coals, they would add bran in order to burn and make the fire strong to melt the gold. Sit, lime. Lime was used to take off hair, like waxing nowadays, women. So now you take off hair. So with lime you can take off hair. But how much hair? So there's 3 shittahs. They lost enough to take off hair from the smallest limb of a girl. What's the smallest limb? The finger. There's machlokas, do we mean the whole finger or just the top of the finger? Now, I don't know how much hair people have on their fingers, but enough lime to be able to take off the hair off the finger, that is already important because a girl might want to use it for that. He says it's enough to make the temples, to take off the hair off the temples.
What machlokes with the finger? A limb is a limb.
Yeah, but is a whole finger considered one limb or just the top notch of the finger considered a limb?
That would be a limb in
My
itself.
finger's 3 limbed, what?
Yeah.
So do we mean the whole finger or just the last third? It means it has to be enough lime to take off the hair off a finger. But how much of the finger? The whole finger? Or just the top third of the finger? Because it's hard to decide what's called a limb over here. And it's the forehead. So some people would use lime on the forehead, some would use it on the temples, and some would use it on the finger. We'll discuss it more. And if you take off enough lime to waxing, then it is forbidden. That's considered on Shabbos. Very good. Okay, shkirch. So with Mr. Hashem tomorrow, we're having a shiur at 10 o'clock. I know that we haven't had a Friday, but I feel I don't want to make a chazak on the shiur on Friday, so it'll be a shorter shiur.
On the Friday login.
What?
On the Friday login.
I can't hear, I'm sorry. It'll be 10 o'clock.
On the Friday login.
Yeah, Friday login, very good. Friday login, 10 o'clock to, let's say, 10:40, 10:45. And it'll be
where do you
uploaded
intend to get to?
What?
Where do you intend to get to?
Well, the daf on Shabbos is Ayin Ches, isn't it?
No, we've actually got a bit further.
Shabbos not Ayin Ches.
No, Shabbos is... you're right, Shabbos is Ayin Ches. Right. So we'll get to the bottom of... Okay, so we should do a very short shiur. We'll get to the bottom of Ayin Tes Amud Aleph because it's a new topic there. Very good. Okay, we'll get to the top of Ayin Tes Amud Beis. The very top. It's actually easy-ish more. Okay. So it'll be a shorter shiur, maybe half an hour, 40 minutes. To the top of Ayin Tes Amud Aleph, to the top of Ayin Tes Amud Beis, the bottom of Ayin Tes Amud Aleph. It's a whole new sugya then. So then it's better because that sugya goes on all the way through. It's just one kasha answer. That's all it is. And then that'd be nice just to think. And it'll be uploaded straight away, Mr. Hashem, like half an hour, an hour later. And that way, just to keep the thing. Once we have the lockdown finished, then we'll have a shiur on Shabbos. There'll be no shiur on Friday. But to have those shiur twice a week is a bit... also, next week is Shavuos, which means that next week we'll have 2 days no shiur. And then there'll probably be shiur on Erev Shavuos, because if we don't, then there'll be 3 days, and that's no good. So probably be a shiur, like again, 10 o'clock on Erev Shavuos. Mr. Hashem. Very good. Okay, Atzlach, have a very, very good Shabbos. Any other questions? Any questions? That's what for Mr. Zilberstein about Nochosh, the snake, the chaza, and the fish. It's a very nice word. He said it's about the husband of his mother, so you can look it up and say, okay. Something to tell your children, right? Okay, have a very good Shabbos. So take it off, yeah? Take it.